So welcome to the Slogans podcast. Today we have Sarah. How do you say your middle name? I don't want to.
Oh, no. It's my last name.
Yeah.
Madeira Day.
Madeira Day.
I didn't want to lose the Madeira.
Sure.
Because Sarah Day sounds like Jane Doe.
Right. Sarah Madeira Day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And she is one of Maine's leading artists, I would say, right now. And, or at least that's what I've heard from. I'm not in the world as much. I hear this from my very design-oriented wife. So, yeah, she really loves your stuff and has watched you a lot. And we're just so excited to have you. Thank you for coming. Sarah has been in. I'm just going to name some of your press things and semi-handmade. What is it? Shout out HTX, Kelly Dawson, Maine Home and Design, Domino. Real Simple, This Old House, Maine Homes Down East, Apartment Therapy, Semi-Handmade, Decor Maine Magazine. And this is, I think, mostly for your projects?
It's sort of in between. Some of them is for art. Some of it is for, the projects.
Yeah. So artists and... we're quality and design podcast, so we love art and creativity. But I mean, I think where we first came to was really your amazing projects, your home rebuilds, and they're just I can't wait to dig more into that. But they're just so beautiful, and especially this main house. I mean, that one is classic. But I don't know, you guys keep stepping it up. It seems like so, Sarah. We just love to get to know people on here and hear the story a little bit. So tell us a little bit about yourself. And I want to know about growing up on MDI and all the way up through to kind of who you became today, kind of thing.
So I make art,
mm-hmm.
and it is really hard. I don't usually say that I'm an artist because I don't feel like an artist, but I feel like somebody who's really interested in a lot of things. And one of the things I feel like I really like to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
I like working for myself. I love making anything. And I've always sort of been like that. But yep, I grew up in Southwest Harbor, Maine, and at an old hotel. Was recently sold a couple of years ago, but I grew up at the Claremont Hotel, which was a really interesting place because it was a seasonal hotel. That's kind of similar to The Shining.
Okay.
So in the wintertime, it's horrifying.
Uh-huh.
And in the summertime, it's like so beautiful.
Huh.
But it was a really interesting upbringing and was something that, to this day, I really think it was really special. But that was like my home for 35 years until they sold it, and now my parents live elsewhere.
So you literally lived in the hotel.
So we lived next to the hotel,
okay.
But yeah, it was. And I want to say a lot of my and actually another cool thing is my grandparents had a summer home that was right at the top of the hill, so we could just walk up this little path, and so you don't. I mean, I have kids now, so I understand like how awesome that is.
Yeah.
But that was really fun. And then, people always say, oh, you're, it's sort of similar to Eloise. Not similar to Eloise because I was working at the hotel. I was not attending the hotel
mm-hmm.
As a guest. So it was cool to be exposed to a lot of different people in the summertime. I really feel like a lot of the staff around the hotel, people who are in the restaurant business or in the hotel business, daylight by one thing and moonlight by another. So it's like these incredibly talented people who are trying to make a living during the day. And then they are artists or musicians or actors or writers. And so I feel like I was exposed to a lot of art that way. Also, the very cool thing about MDI, because it's so seasonal, is that you get this influx of individuals who come in the summertime and have homes and pay property taxes. And then people who live there year round reap the benefits. So we have a really good school system. And I didn't understand how lucky I was until I grew up that we were always given the opportunity for art. And so Pematic is like, it's K through 12. But we had art classes from kindergarten until 12th grade. And I had I would say my art teacher he was a really good guy, is Mr. Sattler, Bob Sattler. But he always was really encouraging. So I want to say I've had not only exposure through school of like free art classes, but also in the summertime I was around, actually Judy Taylor, who is a pretty well-known artist in the state of Maine, was somebody who, when I was like 7 or 8, used to take me out to go paint with her. And
cool.
Which is really cool, you know? But she was a waitress at the hotel.
How old were you then?
I want to say I was like 8. I was like 8, 9, 10. Yeah. I don't know. You know, you don't remember. You're like, I don't know. I was little. But, you know, she was really encouraging. And then my dad's side of the family is very creative, and they are very encouraging of art and being interested in art. So they always really nurtured that. So I want to say like that was my foundation. But also for like the home stuff, the hotel was super old. I want to say it was built in like 89. I could be incorrect, but in the 1880s. So if you've ever lived in an old house, you always have to do stuff. Right. And this was a hotel, so you always had things going on. So I was really exposed to renovations, you know, keeping an old thing going. My uncle had an interesting job, but he was the groundskeeper for the hotel. But he built croquet mallets for a living, which is so weird, right? Croquet, have you ever gotten into it?
I've played it. I don't know if I've gotten into it. I mean,
it's crazy.
I like any sport.
But it's really a beautiful art. But he, you know, had his lathe, and he created these beautiful croquet sets. In Maine, man.
On a lathe. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and he was really, so like after school, I would go up to his shop, which was again right where my grandparents had a house, and his shop was right next to it. So, you know, when I go back and think through these things, because as an adult or when I was graduating college, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I didn't want to be an artist because that's like it feels very lofty. Like, I don't know how I'm going to make money.
Right.
And I didn't feel like I was qualified for anything. But I mean, I did, you know, get a very decent education and went to college and things like that. But you know what I mean? Like, how are you supposed to know what to do at that time?
I don't know if you are.
I don't think that you are.
Just like, they tell you go to college, so you go to college, and then none of us know what to do, and then we spend tons of money and
a million percent. And it's funny, as you get older and you find your interests, you're like, man, I could have really benefited from going to college at like 30.
Yeah, I could have just gone to work and learned a ton of things.
I know.
Anywhere. And then maybe when I kind of thought where I knew where I might want to be, could have focused in.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how it is. But I would say I graduated from college, and I lived in Venice, Los Angeles for a very small amount of time, Venice, California. My uncle lives out there, and he had just had his daughter. And so I like nannied her. But most of my family is from these larger cities like LA and New York. And so I would visit, but I always thought I'm like overstimulated by just like walking on the side of the road. Yeah. So I was like, it's too much.
You talked a lot about, you know, art going up through and your sounds like maybe first inspiration from some of the travelers coming through the hotel and then going to school, and you had kind of a couple of apprentices. But when did your appreciation, or you said, you know, you're trying to figure out what to do, you're going into different cities. So like, when did the, you know, art thing keep getting there, or did you have some things in between? How did you end up doing what you're doing now? Like,
it was, I don't know. It was always something that I did and it made me feel smart and like I was doing it well. And I was always really encouraged throughout. But when I went to college, I thought I would just stop the art thing. I love sports. I wanted to go to college and play sports. And I really like a lot of things. Like I really like math too, which is a funny thing. But I thought I would be a math major, which is weird. But I just can't stay away from it. So I started taking art classes, and then all of a sudden it became my major. And then when I graduated from college, you know, like one of the really nice things later on is like I had stopped doing art as frequently, but I always, you know, and Wes really encouraged me. He's like, you should keep painting, like keep doing it. So I had a lot of different jobs. I feel like I had a smorgasbord of different jobs, but I've always served. Like hospitality has always been a thing that I'm into. I love taking care of people. Customer service is like, I just want to make people happy, and it makes me happy if somebody else is happy. So I like doing that. So I always was a waitress and worked for the Portland Press Herald. I worked for some interior designers.
What did you do with them?
I was just like an assistant, and I thought that was fun. You know,
so what would you do? Would you just whatever they needed? Just paperwork. Whatever they needed.
Whatever they needed. You know, it's really hard though as a creative person to try to choose something for another creative person, because sometimes you could have two totally different styles,
right? And
that can be really challenging. But I did that for a while, and then I started working for a catering company for catering and events, which I did for the bulk of my career before I had my daughter in 2016. So I loved catering and I loved event planning. I thought that was really, and it sort of worked its way up. Like when I worked at the Portland Press Herald, I worked for this woman who is in charge of the events for Maine Today Media. She broke off and started working, started her own business and asked if I would come and help her, which I did.
What was your role there?
Again, just
small business do everything.
Yeah, small business do everything. I mean, this is a very good thing to point out. I worked for a lot of small businesses, and something that has really benefited me of having my own small business is you have your hands in a little bit of everything. Yeah. And that's something that I really like. I feel like that in life too, even when Wes and I are working on projects. I don't like not knowing how to do something. So I like to follow along, figure out how to, I want to use the tools. I want to be able to do this if somebody is not here supervising me. And that's how I've sort of felt across the board. I really like making things and understanding how to do that. And I am much more of a hands-on type of person than I have to like sit back and you tell me what to do. I'm like, let me try it, you know?
Right. That's a good trade, I think.
Yeah. So I worked for a lot of small businesses, and in catering, what is really hard is they're really long days. And my husband is a pharmacist, so he has really long days too. And we waited what I feel like was a pretty long time before we had children. And when we did, I was like, I want to be present, because my parents are wonderful, but they had to work all the time. Yeah. They, they didn't have a lot of money, and they really both had full-time jobs and 3 kids. And something that you end up missing is just like being there for your kids. Anyway, that being said, I made a switch, and I was doing part-time working for another interior designer who I had worked with the interior designer before she started her own company. And so I was able to, and I was doing event planning on the weekends. So I was being a mom, which is not something that I ever planned on doing. And so that was alarming. And I was working with these 2 very creative people, which I loved. And then I was painting on the side, and with the painting started to sort of build up.
How so?
Well, social media was never a thing that, which by the way, artists before the age of social media hustlers, man. They did it.
Have to be, right?
Have to be. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So I tried out Instagram, and that was really, I want to say it gives you this opportunity to reach a larger crowd that you would not generally reach.
Mm-hmm.
And so that helped to build my business. And then on top of it, shopping online, I think something that can be really intimidating is walking into a gallery and shopping for artwork, because you don't really know what you like. It's very quiet and stark in there.
Right.
You feel like possibly it could be out of your economic range. And you just are like, I mean, even as an artist, I don't go into galleries because I'm like, oh, I better know what I want before I go in there. Anyway, so I wanted to sort of eliminate that barrier. And I think having an online website where it's like, I try to set up the art that I was creating to mimic as well as I could scale of a piece, setting of a piece, and then just the stark white that you would in a gallery so people could see it in different ways. Because what I've found is that I am a really literal person, and I think most shoppers are really literal people. So they need to see the application of the thing, which helps. But anyway, so what I just started painting, and I had pitched myself to some places downtown that were like, they did not like my artwork. And I was like, oh, it's crushing.
That's so personal, isn't it?
Well, it didn't feel, so art has never been a super personal thing for me. I think the thing that, you know, hurt is, it's just rejection is challenging.
In general,
yeah. You know, and if somebody's like, I don't really like it. And you're like, you feel like they're saying, I don't really like you, which is not really the case. Right. You know, it's just like, it's the beauty of art. It's like, you cannot like it. That's cool. You should only buy the stuff that you like, not because somebody told you to do it.
Yeah.
But again, a woman was starting a store who had actually worked for another one of these interior designers I had worked for. And she was the buyer for this store that rejected me. And she said, but I really like your artwork. And that was incredibly encouraging. And so I started selling with her, and I sold everything out. And it seems like everything sort of came together at the same time. Things started selling in her store, things started selling through Instagram, and things started selling online. Cool. Which is really cool. And then
this is all when you have like a 1-year-old?
This is all when I have a very little baby. And and I'm just figuring the things out and working, like really all I was trying to do is cover daycare if I wanted to do that. And so I was able to start covering daycare costs, and then I was able to start surpassing what daycare would be and making enough of a salary to then these other odd jobs that I was doing to say, I think I can make enough just working for myself. So I want to say like 6 years ago, I was able to start working for myself fully. But what had really solidified the week-to-week paycheck is that I started making print reproductions of the artwork. And, you know, my artwork in general is something that I guess I would say it was contemporary. I don't really know, but landscapes, people seem to connect with landscapes pretty well. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Maine, because you have mountains, ocean, trees are kind of everywhere. So something that I found when I started making print reproductions is that clients can connect with the places that they live in a certain, if they see a certain image, they're like, this reminds me of whatever. And you're like, awesome. I love that. And creating prints was so that I could reach a larger crowd, that I could go for, which I do have, like kids in dorm rooms that can get a little 5x5 or 8x8 and put it in a Target frame and snazz it up. And it just, and that someone doesn't have to feel that they have to invest this huge amount of money to decorate their space. And for me, I feel like art is very similar to any of the arts, like music and food, and that we should have it as part of our everyday. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create this sort of luxury thing that was attainable. Like a lot of people talk about exclusive luxury brands, and I want to be an inclusive luxury brand. Like, again, going back to just wanting to make a person happy. It's like, yeah.
So as the rope company, you went to Sarah's, their amazing, This Maine House project. That's where you're still living now, right?
That is. And we only call it This Maine House. So again, with the Instagram thing,
it was an Instagram.
We had started it because
I keep looking down to get the name right.
I know our family, we were doing sort of like pictures for our family to be like, we're not crazy. We're doing a good job here. And these are our things that we're doing. And it was like fun, fun to show the progress. And we had to come up with a name, and rather than doing your address,
right?
I was like, well, Wes, you could do it like This Old House. You could do This Maine House. And he was like, oh, that's a good idea. And now it's stuck, and you're a little like, oh,
yeah,
but it just is more of a blanket. It's the account of my husband and I and the projects that we do.
Right.
We do live in that house, that the second house that we have ever owned together.
So do you remember when we came to your house?
Yes.
Did you so where were you at? How old was your child?
And then, yes. How long ago
were you painting?
That?
I
was it 5 years ago? Was it more than that?
It must have been at least 5 years ago.
Yeah, at least 5 years ago.
Maybe it was 5 years
I have no idea.
Renee was there, so maybe it was only 4 years ago.
It was
2018, 2019.
Okay. So I want to say, you guys, it was through a photographer, right, who had asked.
Hannah just saw you.
Oh.
And it was actually Meredith was the photographer.
Yeah, Meredith.
But you knew each other a little bit.
Yes, because I did. I mean, when people need you to model clothing or whatever, I worked with different photographers for things like that. I think it's I knew her.
Right. That's how you ended up modeling. Meredith's like, we should ask her if she wants to model.
Wait, did I do it for your? I don't think I did.
Yeah, you did. You were on the cover of our website for like 3 years.
I was?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You
that's
were the
so
main picture. Yeah.
Oh, that makes me feel uncomfortable.
That's what grew us, I think. Your picture.
No, no, you guys have such a cool story.
Well,
I think that it's sort of the same way of the roots of your family comes from a rope company, correct? And you're fishermen, you're utilizing this thing that you use every day. Again, creative, resourceful, hardworking. Like, it's such a cool idea.
Yeah, it takes a lot of people though, and a lot of
I don't think anybody,
artists like yourself or all these awesome photographers were around, to show these things. And without it, you just can't. You need to find a way to the truth, and through artists like all of you, that's how you get there. So, I try to make the truth.
I think one of the things that is often lost is that behind the smoke and mirrors, there are so many people who help get you to where you need to go. And, even if you're just like, it's somebody watching your kids, it's amazing. Or like for Wes and I, we do all the work on our houses, but we have his dad, Leighton, who gives us scraps, who comes and spends days with us, teaching us how to do things, we have my parents who are so great and have taught, you have an army of people. And now with my own business, I have a really lovely group of people. I have a photographer. I have a marketing manager. I have a woman who I was just talking on the phone trying to find the podcast studio, who's really lovely and again, a person that I'm so grateful for. But you have an army of people. And then if somebody lives with you, you have that person too, who really carries the brunt. I mean, I don't know how, the person definitely has a relationship with the small business as well, so you're like big time. Yeah. But yes, when you guys came, that was really cool. I just remember Hartley being on the, at the like front door with the rope.
Yes. Okay, so that was Hartley.
That was Hartley.
Right.
Yeah.
She had this weird blend. I was like, what is this?
She's we call her skinny.
She's so beautiful.
Skinny brown dog. Yeah.
Yeah, just sleek.
She's
she's cool.
we rescued her. She came from Kentucky, and she was one of those funny things where, you know, you have to go through those adoption agencies, but we adopted a different dog. And when we went to, which they put you through the ringer to do, and when we went to pick the dog up, they're like, oh, sorry, it was dark. We gave the dog away to a different family.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa. And I was not there with Wes, and I was like adopting this dog, but they said, we have these 2 dogs that haven't been taken. And like, I am not a good person for something like that, because I'll be like, I'll take them all.
Right.
Let's go home. Yeah. And so I picked Hartley, and she is what I feel like is my soulmate. She's so sweet. She is my, you know, I'm a distance runner, and the dog could run for days. She is amazing. She's run so long, and she spends all of her days with me in the studio. She's like, she's an old girl now.
So when we were there, I feel like you went upstairs to where was that your studio then?
Oh yeah, the tiny room.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't go up there.
Yeah.
You just let us have total access to your house. That was amazing. Like, I don't know, you guys. Here's some coffee, and just going around this amazing place, experiencing
we still do that. We still rent our house out for product shooting. Because again, growing up at a hotel, it doesn't feel awkward to have. Okay. I'm like, yeah, come on in, get comfy. I've always, I mean, we always have people in and out of our house and our space, so it doesn't feel strange. It's why I like the Airbnb thing too, because I love to create a space that's hospitable for other people.
Okay. Yeah. And I've read some of your interviews, and you've done it with that mindset going in, right? And like kind of an investment.
We always do it as an investment. I mean, well, the first investment that we made was the Freeport house. Okay. When we did that.
Yeah, tell me about that house.
Yeah, so that was a house when we had the Cumberland house, and we had put the addition on, and it was like it had gone through iterations. Which is
this main house, the Cumberland house.
Which is this main house, yes. Okay. And then we took out a home equity loan, and we were looking around for another place to buy. My husband's always looking at real estate. And we found this really sweet little cottage in South Freeport, which, by the way, coolest place. I love South Freeport.
South Freeport.
Yeah, yes, it's got like this cool little marina.
Cool.
And it's got, I mean, it's really
all the
sweet.
South Freeport people are not excited you're saying.
Right now. They're like, shh, don't tell. Stop. Anyway, we bought this house that needed a lot of work, and we were going to rent it, and we started working on it. And I want to say, in the end, we probably should have taken it all down and built something else. But it was a good, I want to say it was a good experience for us, because we started with a structure, we stuck with that same structure, and we just, we reorganized it. So it worked better. We closed off the upstairs to create, because we really wanted to have at least 2 people to be able to sleep in there. And we have kids, and the idea of having like an open loft is very scary. So having a door, kitchens can either be very, very expensive, or you can do it with, essentially spend your money. We spent our money in the places that we felt would make the most impact. So again, like stone, with countertops, refacing the fireplaces, things like that. But things that are less expensive are like IKEA or semi-handmade doors or things like that. So that was hard and messy, and something that by the end of it, there were tears, but we were really proud of it too, you know? And we did rent that out, but we knew we wanted another child, and my business was starting to get really busy. And so being the person who cleans and turns over each one of these Airbnbs, I was like, oh man, I have no time to do anything. So we ended up selling that. And you saw my little room that was in the house.
I didn't see the room
upstairs.
Oh,
you didn't? Oh, no, it was small. It's so I got pregnant with Nevi, and after we sold this Freeport house, we had some debt, and we wanted to pay off the rest of our debt before we had more kids, just so we felt stable and able to do that. And I also wasn't really making any money in my business, nothing super substantial. And so I was working inside of the house, but it was spilling into our house to the point where I have a huge printer in our dining room. All of my cutting table is our dining room. Upstairs is my painting area. You
printed your own stuff.
I was printing. I was having it outsourced, and I said, "This is crazy. I can do this myself." So again, saying that I want to learn how to do all the things.
Yeah,
I was learning how to, and I had employees in my home doing this. I was also very pregnant. Had Nevi, and the day after I had Nevi, the printer was delivered to our home. We started working on this barn that is on our property, barn garage, and it had to be worked on because the insurance company was like, "We will not insure you if you do not fix up this barn." Okay. But we had no money, so we had to be like, "Okay, right." But we started fixing up the barn, and we're like, "We're going to add a second story." And make that my studio. But what we found out very early on is the structure was not built for a second story. So we had to reinforce that whole thing, which is quite an added cost. All that being said, we're in the middle of construction. I have a baby. I get this printer delivered. It's COVID.
Right. Nice.
And the thing is, it's like Wes and I are both these people. We're just like, let's keep going.
Yeah.
We got it.
That's great.
So, Nev just was with me, and we started printing outside of the home, inside of our home, and having all of that. And then that spring, the studio was finished, and I could move out of our house, and that has been a game changer.
I have, and is that on this main house tag?
That is.
It's all I've seen. That is
your normal some tag. Of the
Instagram,
again with some of the features that I've had have been a linked up of, a lot of our life is sort of integrated. You know, it's having my studio as part of my business, but it's also this thing that my husband and I do.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I was just going to say, I was looking at it, before this, and it's just amazing.
I mean, it's a little, so we did it for, we also had to be smart about it. Like, not everybody wants a studio, and our home is our biggest asset.
Right.
So we made it an in-law apartment. So the whole structure is created so that I can take out, some of the cabinets and things like that and make a bedroom and a living area. And then we have a bathroom so that it can be an in-law apartment if we ever sold our home.
Very practical and wise.
I mean, we're pretty practical.
I see that. Well, you're an entrepreneur. And so, I mean, you guys create these unbelievably timeless, gorgeous things. So is that really all, nice. Who's responsible for the aesthetics? And is it a team thing? Like, how are you guys coming up with these amazing, timeless? I mean, we could shoot at your place every day.
Oh, that's nice.
But while your studio's new, maybe we could come back. Yeah. But it's I mean, what you guys are making is just really, timeless is all I can keep thinking of. But so how does that work? Who's putting that together, and who's responsible for? I guess it's not a who thing, but how does it happen? Yeah. And what is the process with you and your husband?
I mean, again, we sort of work with a team of people. We're not architects, so anything that is like engineering, we always have an architect or an engineer. Okay. I do the design aesthetics for the most part, but I would say my husband has a really good eye. I feel like I lean more towards a masculine look, so I feel like together we mesh well. So I think it's really nice that you say that it's timeless, because that's sort of what we're going for. But the other thing is that I feel like I have very expensive tastes. So it's like I get an idea of something that I like. I really do use Pinterest a lot because it's hard for me to convey my ideas to Wes. And so I'm like, okay, here's sort of the vibe that I'm going for, which is a great tool. And then he is more of the 3D guy. So I want to say we both have this, we really both like natural materials. So stone, wood, we're not super colorful. I really like a white palette on certain things because I think when it comes to I love light, having it like light and bright. but it also allows for like things, because I like old and new. If you take something that could just be essentially not super special to somebody and put it in a completely stark white space as your like piece of art or your what, it totally transforms that thing, right? And so I feel like committing to a wall color sometimes can be like too much, but it allows you to be more versatile, have these things, you know, it kind of gives that a little bit of an art gallery feel, but you don't, you know, and then color is introduced generally in like the soft goods and things that can be removed and changed, because I always feel like committing to a color is really hard.
That's a great,
but sticking with the basics of natural things, like how color naturally comes in wood, and wood can bring a ton of color into a space, but and the application of sealing the wood can also completely change the look and color of the room. Does
that change the texture or just the color itself?
I feel like it's
kind of hand in hand.
I mean, I guess it's kind of everything, but and again with stone, like you can I have like a raw soapstone in my studio, and I chose that because I'm cleaning my palette in there. It's really like I use cadmium red. Trying to get that out of white marble would be not a good idea. But using these things that look already kind of aged and they're going to age with you is also a great thing to think of. But like you could do a finish on that same piece of stone. It looks completely different. So I think the colors that we introduce are generally in the products that are not as easily as swapped out, and try to keep it basic. And then things that if you want to, you know, go with some trendy things, or you can always do that with art or soft goods or accents, you know.
So that's how you blend timeless and trendy, if that's a term. And
it's also like, I'm not opposed to box store stuff. I think that, but I don't lean all into one thing. So it's like, collect the things that you think are really special.
Okay. Right.
Put your money into the things that you don't really want to cheap out on, such as plumbing and electricity and things like that, but also such as like stone or the wood on your floors, unless you're going to paint your floors, you know, which is also a really great thing to do.
Stuff that you don't want to tear up again.
That you don't want to tear up again, but just you know, I'm saying this also thinking that the Block Brothers make the most beautiful cabinets. Whoa. But we use inexpensive cabinets and change the cabinet doors, because I think a lot of times hardware can make something look really elegant.
Yeah. I actually noticed in one of your things, you didn't use hardware on some. So tell us why.
So a lot of times I don't like to, you know, something will go in and then I'm like, oh, I don't want to obstruct the surface by putting in a million little doorknobs, you know? Or also the other thing that I just did for my studio is like, we had to have doorknobs, and I tried all different colors of metal, and it just looked like way too many. So we ended up, like, monotone is a big thing for me. So we ended up painting them the same color of the cabinets and just wooden knobs, very inexpensive. And it sort of makes them melt away. So it's not as in your face, I guess. Yeah. You know? So it's and a lot of these things happen as you do them. So I think Wes is always like, you're a visual person. I'm a person who has to see it first. Right. But that can be really hard when you're like, could you put that window in and then take it out? You know, don't do that. So a lot of those things come, you know, it's nice working with your husband who's okay with doing some of that. Yeah. But when you're working with somebody, let's say, has no emotional commitment to you, they're like, listen, lady, pick a lane. Okay. Yeah.
Well, or we can do this all day. So it'll cost you a lot more.
I know. Exactly. Yeah. Right. And we also always have to stay within a budget.
Right.
Which is really, you know, I feel like one of the things about liking these things that could be really expensive is you can still create elegance on a small budget. And I think there are people who show that. And I would say for the design that we do. It's having an idea and being able to pivot if we have to, but staying within the certain parameters. So old, new, cheap, expensive, you know. And when I say inexpensive but well made, that's the other thing, is that, which there are a lot of things out there that are that way.
Where are your kind of favorite places to find some of those types of things?
Well, I feel like I always like to go to antique stores, thrift shops, you know, looking at actually a pretty good online rug. Like I do believe in having a really nice rug. So there's like e-sale rugs is a good place to look for rugs. Then like places like IKEA, it really comes in handy. And you know, I really like Sixpenny. Have you ever heard of them?
I think I've heard of them.
Yeah, they have.
I'm like in the world, but I'm not in the world.
Yeah, well, they are a good sofa company because everything is removable. So you can wash everything. So it's all slipcover, but it's these really pretty affordable sofas that are beautiful, and they can come in linen, and they's like really nice, soft, and they have great lines. But it's all slipcover. Like, I don't know how somebody buys a sofa that you spill on it. I mean, because you have to live in these, like,
right, especially if you have kids.
Right. And this is the thing about not doing it as a job, is that somebody else has to live in it if it's your job. But if you're just doing it for a hobby, you have to live in it, and you learn really quickly all the dumb mistakes that you've made. And you're like, I'm not going to do that again. So I think that that has taught us a lot of things too. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. If you guys want to see, anybody listening wants to see Timeless done well, I mean, I would just love to hear I think you just said a ton there for anybody who wants to create timeless, beautiful things. And I love natural too, natural stone, the siding. You know, but even like what was the color of that studio?
It was like the green?
I thought it said like a midnight. I don't know. You tell me what the color is.
So it's like sort of a mix. So we did a Devon.
The exterior?
Oh, the exterior was, actually, that's because you are limited. So it is.
It could have been even better. I don't think it could get much better.
It's LP siding, which is a newer type of like composite siding that is supposed to, it's supposed to last for like 20 years. Look like composite. Yeah. And I think might be made out of recycled material, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay. But they have a couple, they have certain colors that are, that they give you. And I wanted to go like black, and the closest they had was like that blue-ish color, which I was really like, oh, geez, I don't know if I want a whole blue exterior, but that's sort of what we had to go with. But the way that felt like we could make it, what I felt more timeless and seem like it was very thoughtfully done, is also painting the trim the same color. And I think that really changes something. So rather than going a shade darker or a shade lighter, again, picking that monotone. So trim is everywhere, which is something that I have found over the years, where I'm like, I don't want any trim, but not doing any trim is often not an option, and very expensive, and you have to pre-plan that. So trim on your roof line, trim on the sides of the home, trim all around the windows. If you do that the same color as your siding, it creates a totally different building.
It really does.
And, you know, I really wanted to highlight those massive black windows that are the two in the front. And then again, bringing in the color with the copper lighting. And I thought that
the copper lighting is awesome. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's pretty cool, but, so we were limited to, I want to say, a handful of different colors within our budget. You know, we could have painted any color we wanted, but it would have been.
You took that and you rolled with it.
I mean, you gotta, for the most part, you gotta do that. It looks
fantastic. Yeah. So you guys are doing all this stuff. I mean, that's a lot. So are you doing most of the building too in all these projects, you and your husband?
When we started, yes, we were. Okay. At this point, with 2 kids, we are not. We are hiring out things that we just can't do. Yeah. And, or don't have time for, because we both have 2 full-time jobs, and my husband is very busy, and I feel like I'm pretty busy. And so we hire out the things that again, we would want a professional to do.
Right.
And then the things where we know that we can cut costs and we can do it ourselves, like tiling, like installing cabinetry, installing all of that, like painting. I mean, painting, come on. You know, he's gone as far as like installing floors and doors and like things like that. But now we do a mix of hiring and then doing it ourselves. Again, trying to stay within a budget. You know, everything is trying to stay within a budget. And we are building another home.
That's the next project?
That's the next project. So we were looking for, my parents live in Southwest Harbor, and I have 2 other sisters with whom I love so much. And they have husbands, and my older sister has 2 kids. So we're like bursting at the seams with my parents' house. And we have been looking to see if we could find something that we could rent when we're not there and then visit. And we ended up finding this piece of property that was like the start of a garage. And it already had the slab poured, and it already had a septic, and it already had the groundwork done, which is incredibly expensive. But this is the first time we're building from the ground up. So we usually work with a structure, which is, for me, is very hard for my brain to think. I'm somebody who again, likes to see it first and comes up with the idea. So coming up with the idea out of the blue is more challenging. But we've used some really cool things, which I don't know if you knew. Wes found this, and I was like, this is brilliant. Generally, lumber companies, like a Hancock Lumber, like a Viking Lumber, they have on staff, I don't know if they're architects. They could be architects, draftsmen. And you can sketch out what you would like, and they will create it for you. And the cost of that is taken off if you buy your lumber through that company. We
did do that with Hammond.
You did?
Yeah.
Is that, that's incredible.
That's super cool. Yeah.
I know. It's really, and again, also with the materials that you're going to use. And I thought, this is really smart. And it's it's the basic drawings. Maybe some of them are architects, but it is a great service. And and if you already are particular about your interior and you know what you want it to look like, or you already have the particulars figured out, having somebody draw out the basics that you don't know how to do is incredibly helpful. So
what's the vision for this one? Can you give us a visualization of all?
So it's going to be a 2-story home on a what was a garage slab. So we're working just with the footprint that was there.
Yep. How big is that?
That's a very good question. I have no idea. It's not terribly big. It was supposed to be like the size of a garage. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is kind of square.
Garage, like 24 by 32.
It was a 2-car garage.
Okay.
And then it had like a man door on the side.
All right.
So the downstairs is going to be pretty open. It has a half bath and a washer. The other thing is you can fit a lot into a small space if you do it thoughtfully. Right. So
you don't have a basement there, so you got to put utilities somewhere. Right?
So utilities and washer and dryer are on the same in the same sort of area, and then we have a little half bath.
Yep.
And then the open space is living, dining, kitchen area, sort of in the size of an L. But what we have done is we maintained the 8-foot ceilings that were already there, already framed out. So it makes a small space feel really big. It's keeping.
Oh, we already had some framed out.
It had some of it framed out a little bit. We had to sort of backtrack because it was uncovered for so long that the wood swells with all this rain and things that we've had. Anyway, so we have these very massive windows, but we're trying to stick with your idea of keeping it traditional. So we're doing the 6/6 paneled windows. We're doing cedar shakes for the exterior because we currently live or have only had clapboard houses, and you have to paint those, and it's exhausting. And it's one of those things that cedar seems to be a really smart move for down the road. It's expensive up front, but you don't doesn't need as much maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
And then the upstairs is 2 queen beds, 2 queen rooms, identical for our girls. You know what it's like having 2 kids. You got to do exactly the same.
Yeah, 2 girls.
Yeah.
I have the same thing.
And a bathroom for them, and then a master area, which, I mean, I think a master is just considered something that has a bathroom attached to it. I don't really know.
Sounds good to me.
And a closet. But it's coming right along, and it's, it's really exciting because it's a place, I mean, to be able to go to the island and feel like I have a place of my own is like, I mean, a dream of Wes and mine. And it feels really special. And it's in Tremont, which is like, I'm a backsider. They call that side of the, and it's quiet. It's, you have there's a lot of really good trails on that side. You have Bass Harbor right there for getting on and off your boat. You got the lakes. I mean, it's pretty.
Is this a cape or a?
I think that's what you would call it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What? I wouldn't even know.
I don't know all the different terms. I think, geez, I don't want to embarrass myself with missing all the different terms.
The thing is who knows unless you do that for, like, this is the other thing.
Yeah.
You fire questions at me. And talking to contractors, sometimes I have to be like, I don't know what you're saying.
But this is what I'd like
and
to have,
if you just explain it to me, because I was, I'm not using the right terminology or those sort of things. But
that's so cool. So it'll just be cedar shakes on the outside.
Yep, black windows exterior, white on the interior because black is more expensive. And again, you're like, I didn't feel like that was a hard line. So you always have to come to make these exceptions. And that's how we sort of choose your own adventure. Comes down to what is more costly. I'll go with the least costly thing.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So I think I was asking before, you guys are doing all this. You have a lot going on, entrepreneur and full-time and kids and designing and sounds like you're kind of made for it, but also at the same time, how do you just kind of refresh and like, what does your day-to-day look like, but getting time to like get your energy back? And how does that work?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always interested in what people do as well. Cause I'm like, aren't you so tired?
So Hannah wants to know. Everybody wants to know. Yeah.
I am a person who, like I was saying before, I'm a relatively introverted person. I go to bed pretty early with my kids. Routine is a really important thing. So, and getting proper sleep. So when I say early, I mean like 9 o'clock. I'm in bed sleeping. And then we get up earlier, and that's when I run and things like that. But again, you have to like collect your kids. And so I would say like, you have to schedule time and schedule days where you're not going to do, or part of days where you're not going to do everything. And we generally have a family day, which is what my parents always had too. You
mean like once a week or
once a week?
Okay.
Yeah, we have a family day once a week. And as much as we can, we, because we are so busy on the times that we're all together, we're often all together just the 4 of us. So, having dinner and doing that. We don't go out and do a lot of things. And a lot of what you're seeing is a series of many things, many days put together. And so there are some days that aren't incredibly busy, but I would say for the most part, it's scheduling in time that you have for yourself, and that you have with your family. And so, usually it's Sundays because Wes has Sundays off, and we'll do something where we have a hard stop, even if not everything's done. And unless it's pressing, which for the most part, nothing is all that pressing unless your arm's falling off. You got to go somewhere. And then we go do a fun thing. Like we have a hard stop at 4 and we make popcorn and we watch a movie together Friday. And on Sundays. Or if it's going to be a boat day, we say we're leaving and we're getting on the boat and we're going to go and do this. And
at this time,
and we go. I think one of the things that I miss is the flexibility of not having everything scheduled. Because I am not a schedule. I don't like having everything scheduled.
Okay.
And I mean, I don't know how you feel about with kids, but you kind of need everything scheduled, right? Somebody.
I mean, in life, things go a lot better when they are scheduled.
Right. When you have a plan.
I mean, now you have to schedule things.
That's what I mean.
The world is just so fast. And if you have any sense of doing something on a regular basis, it's just going to be filled up.
Right.
And
it's hard. I mean, the other thing is we do a lot of these things with our kids too. Mm-hmm. You know, they've lived through a lot of different renovations, and, you know, Elle comes home from school at 4 and she comes up to the studio and we finish the last part of my work. We put on an audiobook so she's not bored. And, you know, I can multitask anything that I try to do the things that have to be really quiet in the first part of the day. So, but
is that the one that I saw one photo of with the feet? Is that her?
It's her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite of your charcoals.
I don't know why.
I don't know if it's because I like unique thing and all your other stuff is more the land. I mean, you have landscape. I just like, maybe it's the material. I don't know.
It could be. So
all I can say is I just love the charcoal. Those are my favorite.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was a portrait artist for most of my career.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I switched over to landscapes because they sell better.
Mm-hmm.
And to a wider crowd than. Sure. I mean, but this is not to say that portraiture is like incredible, and a lot of times you don't need to know the person. You're like, I just really love this thing.
Yeah.
But it's something that I still do. I mean, because they're my kids, or, you know, every once in a while I'll open it up to clients who want their children or their loved ones or something like that. But yeah, I loved doing portraiture. I loved doing eyes. Eyes were a big part of it. I always loved that.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
All the charcoals. Just tell me about, you know, I love being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
About being an entrepreneur and an artist, and you know, just kind of your take on all of it and how it's going. And
yeah. There is nothing. I feel so lucky to work for myself. I also feel like having the job of an artist is like being like, I want to be an astronaut when I grow up. You know, you're like, I want to be an artist when I grow up.
Percentage-wise.
And then actually doing it feels incredible. And I love all the facets of it. I love, again, like I said, I'm a numbers person, and I find it so interesting. Price points and thresholds that are comfortable for people. And, you know, I really, again, I don't want to price myself out of something. And so I want I want it to be attainable. Like, that's huge. But I also love printing and packaging. I love packaging.
You mean making packaging or actually packaging? Actually
packaging, and the feeling of making a beautiful package. So I think the hard thing about selling something online is that it has to be twice as good in person, right? And people are spending this money, and you want them to feel like they're getting the experience of going into a shop, but they get it at home. So you get to unwrap this present you got for yourself or somebody else. And like that, I love that. I love that branding. I love that. I've done all of my own web design up until this point. I just hired this lovely woman who just because you can't do all of the things. I mean, it becomes unmanageable. Right. So there are just things where you find that you have to put your time into different things. So I think I feel really lucky to make my own hours, and to be able to work with a lot of very interesting people. You know, I think as I've established myself a little bit more as an artist, I've gotten to work with some interesting people and hear how they run a business and hear what they're looking for, and try to collaborate with other people, because you can feel very lonesome in your own work. And it is fun to work with somebody else. I think one of the hardest things when I was starting out was not really knowing if I was making the correct choices. And I feel like as I've built my community, I've built more of a community around people who run their own businesses, and being able to hear what's happening with them, and that you're not on your own little island and everybody's sort of going through it, because it's a very, you could be like, well, that was dumb. I don't know.
Yeah, you very easily could. Yeah, you do need support. I've been to a bunch of different groups, and
or even just people that you talk to and say, are you struggling with this? We started this like little while back, this like round table of some marketing people, and it was interesting to just for all of us to tell our, what's going on with you, and that seems to be really beneficial to do things like that.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, at the end of the day, I just want people to feel happy and heard, and like they purchase something that they like. And that's sort of how I've continued to run my business, is that it's not out of reach, that you feel like you like what you're getting, that if something goes wrong, you have a real person behind you to say, let's fix it, and no problem,
Yeah, that's worth everything.
And I think that that's really important, and staying true to your own values and the things that you that you really like. And that's sort of how I want to treat people, how I want to be treated,
Yeah. So you have you print everything in house.
Yep.
Do you actually hand package everything?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it's like thousands.
I'm sure.
It's a lot of time.
Too.
It's a lot of time, but I don't do it all by myself. I have a woman, Carrie, who works for me, and she's wonderful. She
do you actually have people on staff? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, like and she's a full-time person who works for me. She worked for LL Bean for 10 years and just made a lifestyle change. She also lives very close to me, so it's we work well together.
Yeah.
She's a pretty steady Eddie, and we're both very organized people. So yes, we do that. And then I have I've outsourced marketing, so people who do my marketing, and I used to take all my own photographs, and I've outsourced that because I don't want to edit all that stuff. And, so it's, you get to the point where, but I'm ready to go, depending on the market and how things are selling, you should know how to do those things, because you might have to say, I can't pay for that anymore. I got to learn how to do it, and the social media is very good in the beginning, and now it's slowly killing me, with all these different things. It feels like
algorithms, and you just can't keep it. Yeah, it's not the same.
Or
thing.
I'm not a videographer, and it's the real thing is.
Do you do many? You said you have a photographer. I feel like, but you must have taken a lot of your own photos.
Yeah, I do. I mean, she's my friend, and she, if I'm going to do bulk things, she'll come and do it so that I can. But I mean, I take a lot of my own photograph. And I was
great. Whatever you do, it looks great.
Yeah, it was painting and photography were what my majors were. And, but I was right on the cusp of before they were doing digital stuff. So I did darkroom, which I never learned the Adobe Suite. So I'm sort of having to teach myself, and it's squirrely.
You learned the real stuff, and then it died.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Or it's,
It's, yes, yeah.
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 So do you have any, like, interesting new, like, what's getting you most stimulated on new projects? Do you have anything like you're excited about, new things you're doing? Could be art wise, or I guess your house, you're building that place. Just kind of what else is going on that stands out to you right now?
I feel like I have a lot of projects going on. A couple of them are like a little bit more secretive, but I'm working with some cool people with that. Trying to work with mostly Maine-based people, which is interesting, and working on some like possibly fabric stuff that you could make into wearable things. And I don't know. I'm testing out the bigger companies. I signed with Crate and Barrel for 2024 for having some stuff there.
That's exciting.
That's cool. I mean,
as in you're designing.
No, they licensed artwork that they're gonna,
cool.
which I do some licensing of stuff where people reproduce it. And yeah, the house is really exciting. I took a couple years off of marathon running, but I'm doing my 11th and 12th marathon this year.
Wow. Did you do MDI or everywhere?
MDI, I will do that one. My brother-in-law is, I'm somebody who, like, he knows very well, but he'll be like, come do this with me. I'm like, okay. So MDI, I love it. It's like and it's a nice time of year to do it. And then I like the Maine marathon too. Yeah. It's a good one.
Yeah. Somebody told me about some guys who put together like a over the mountains across MDI, like,
oh really,
50K thing. Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, wow, that'd be super cool. But so, I mean, how do you keep your knees together? All the marathons you run.
This'll be
whatever else,
right. I took a couple of years off because, I always said if it was hurting, I would chill, which is but I'm feeling okay. And I bike a lot too. I feel like helpful. And it's way more fun because you get to go downhill and you don't have to run downhill. You just get to go super fast. So I love biking.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. Talking about, the podcast is, about quality. Everything you've been talking about is quality and design and story. Yeah. And so tell me, what does like quality and or design mean to you, or however you want it?
Well, I think like something that's really important to remember, and especially when you're on a budget, is there are things that are inexpensive, but they can still be quality products. And it's something to really consider. Is it made of, real wood, first off? Is it all plastic? Is it going to age well? So I think quality and expense don't necessarily, it doesn't need to be extremely expensive to be high quality. And even something that's in my own business, I've tried all different types of paper.
Right.
And what I currently print on is canvas. And why I've done that is because it feels like a really quality product. It doesn't damage as easily. So whereas like paper, you get a wrinkle in it, it's done. You have to throw it out. Yeah. And, so it actually works better in the mailing system and things like that. But to remember that, you don't, like I want to sell people affordable things that when they get it home, they're even more impressed by it because it is a quality product, because the colors are rich, because the material is nice, because the packaging is beautiful, and I think the same thing with things in your home. It doesn't necessarily, we buy inexpensive IKEA drapes, but the thing that you can do is they're made of like a cotton fabric. You can still hem them and make them, it doesn't necessarily have to be, quality can come in a lot of different ways. And then what was your second? What was the other?
Well, yeah, that was pretty much it. I did have design in there, but I think it's really what were you gonna say?
I just think that also with design, it's I don't really remember exactly what she said, but Leanne Ford had like this interesting quote that was like, what's in fashion for this year? What she said is essentially what you love and what you can live with and surround yourself by is more of what is in fashion rather than sticking with the trends. So think of things that you don't want to rip out in 5 years, and that the things that can be maybe a little bit more risky or trendy or smaller objects, but like trust yourself, trust your design, trust the things you love. Doesn't matter what other people like. You have to live with it, Right. And that's really important to remember. I think not only with your home, but I think also with art. It's like, if it connects with you, if you really like it, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I totally agree. Can you think of like a favorite object you have that you work with, that you use at home, wherever it might be, like a physical, tangible object that you might use on a somewhat regular basis in your life?
Okay, I kind of have a funny one.
Okay.
It's a spoon, a wooden spoon. that my mom had always used in our kitchen. And I don't know how I wound up with it, but it's like sort of split down the middle. I don't know what kind of wood it's used. I swear I use that spoon for everything. And like I cook with it all the time. That's like an object in our home. For like objects in my studio, I always think that I'm really funny, but I like the good house painter brushes. So I don't spend a ton of money on brushes, but the wider, you can just get them at Home Depot. Love that. Those are some objects that I think are really great. But I also I'm like a funny person. I like I'm like a minimalist and don't have a lot of trinkets, but the things that I'm always drawn to are like weird little trinkets, like that are around. I'm trying to think. Like I have these cool, they're like these little, they're supposed to be candle holders, but they could only hold a birthday candle, but they're also like weighted. Yeah. And I don't know, those are pretty cool. I have this little Buddha that we have, I think it's Buddha, that sits on our kitchen, sort of like that bench that everybody really likes, that was like our biggest this Maine house like question. And the girls give it offerings, which is really interesting. So like rocks that we find, or like weeds around, I don't know, but I like that because I think the girls are really funny. They dress her up and down. She's just like a stone thing.
So like your like the wooden spoon or any of these things, like why are they your favorites? So, well, I guess you just explained the trinkets, but like your spoon, why is that why do you use it all the time? Why?
I think because my mom did. And, again, you're growing up on an island. You very rarely go out. You make all of your meals in house. It was always something like food is really important to me. I think it's I love the way that it looks, smells, that you can eat it. It's not this precious thing, anywhere from a McDonald's hamburger, which is really well executed and, whatever, to something beautiful that somebody has made you from their own home. There's something about this. My mom used the spoon all the time. I really like it because I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'm just very drawn to it. And it also it's like the perfect size. Yeah. And it has a long handle. I don't know.
Sounds super practical. Yeah. You're a very practical person. I'm
like this.
You really tie in creative and practical.
This is why I don't feel like I'm very artistic. I feel like I have these creative ideas, but I'm so practical. Get it done. Yeah, I am essentially the Jane Doe. This is why I didn't want to go with my name, because I'm like,
I see.
Just average.
Well, awesome. What did I ask you? What is there anything else you could think of? Any questions for me, or what didn't I ask you that?
I feel like I talked for days.
Yeah.
I talked a lot. I think that it's so nice. I feel very flattered that you asked me. And I think that it's cool that we can connect back, that you use the house, that you've seen the house, because really I'm just some lady trying to make it work. And it's nice when somebody says, you're doing a good job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Hannah and I, we talk about Hannah a lot, my wife, but we're basically, I guess, business partners at the same time. But we like authentic. A lot of what you were explaining, I feel like, in that was you like things that are very practical, because you're very practical, but also authentic, and they've got some story.
A lot of the growth, or anywhere that I've been, feels like it's been really organic. Yeah. And I try to stick to that. And I think it's nice when you have people and you surround yourself by people who are who they are, and they
authentic, right?
Yeah. And there's a lot.
And that's what I was going to say. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. Get me going again. That authenticity is a big thing. So we really at least wanted to start the podcast with people we already had a connection with, people in Maine. We're so thankful to have you. I mean, really, it's a big deal. We know it's a lot. You guys are super busy. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And not to be too cliche, but where can people find you? And
you can find me. You're right. My longest name ever, sarahmadeiraday.com, or at Sarah Madeira Day, or at this main house.
That's where all those beautiful projects
That's
are.
where a lot of our projects are. Although I very much lag because, again, with all this time, we're really the people behind these things. So we you're really talking to us, and we just don't have a ton of time. I would say like the thing we talked about before on Sundays, or even when we go home, we really put our devices down a lot, and we just spend time together. I think just because I'm an overstimulated person, but because, there's a lot to say about just getting to hang out with your people.
Yeah. So important. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we could like blow up our Instagram with everything going on in our life, but we just choose want to be here with our kids.
I think it's learning the balance.
Even if some people do all that, that's great. But
I do. I think I find it very impressive.
Yeah.
And I feel very much like I'm not doing enough. But if you are that sort of person, you're doing plenty.
Have you ever seen Secret Life of Walter Mitty?
No.
With Ben Stiller.
Maybe. Yes, where
he's chasing down a photographer.
Yes. Yes.
So who is Sean Penn?
Yes.
So anyway, at the end,
he's in the field.
He's literally he's about to get the shot of the snow leopard that he's like gone on this crazy adventure and almost risked his life to get to. And he finds him and he's like, the snow leopard comes in. He's like, are you gonna take it? And he's like, sometimes I don't.
Yes.
He said, sometimes I just like to enjoy the moment. And he just doesn't even take the picture.
I know.
I just feel like that's such a cool, just kind of live in it sometimes.
I mean, I think that it's very cool. But, the other thing is that there's nothing wrong with documenting all of the things that you want to do. It's just, the type of person that you are. And if that fills you up, do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you're like, I mean, it just drains me after a while, and I feel, and it kind of like bums me out. And so I feel like I do everything in my power to keep myself sort of upright. And if it's bumming me out, then I edit it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Sarah.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.